Okay, so thanks for joining me. And I am going to take just a couple of minutes and I'm going to tell everyone about a venture that I am currently involved in that I'm excited about. And I think you might also be excited about it. And I think it's important. And you may also think that it is important. So I'm going to explain what that is in just a moment, but I want to open with a question. And that question is, what do we understand about power? I'll go on. Do we fully appreciate the way in which power impacts our lives? That could be our lives personally, it could be the lives of our family members, the members of our communities, the citizens of our countries. Do we fully appreciate the impact that power has on our lives? Now, I'm going to pause there for just a moment. I want to explain to you guys um, something that I've been involved in for almost 2 years now, and it's called IPAC EDU. Now, what is IPAC EDU? So IPAC is an acronym, IPAK. It stands for the Institute for Pure and Applied Knowledge. EDU is just a shorthand for education, but it's an online learning community comprised of people like you and me, adults that are interested in learning about the world. Why? To better inform their decision making processes, have a better appreciation of the world that we live, work, and operate in, understand how that world works so that we might make decisions that optimize our lives. There's a catalog of courses that IPAC EDU has that cover a range of subjects that many of you would find interesting. It was created a couple of years ago by Dr. James Lyons Weiler, who is a research scientist, specifically a biologist, spent, I would say, his adult life, conducting research, came out of the world of academia and realized that education doesn't have to be confined to some sort of brick and mortar institution, and that there are other ways in which we can touch more people, we can interact with more people, and we can form communities of like-minded individuals, and we can learn from one another. Now, when I say like-minded individuals, that doesn't necessarily mean that we only interact with people who see everything the exact same way that we do. One, that wouldn't be very helpful. And two, it would also be quite boring. But when I do say like-minded, what I mean is that we perhaps value a community of people who are individuals with integrity. They're honest, they care about the truth, they seek the truth, they want to understand how the world works, they want what's best for them, what's best for their families, but also what's best for others, and they eagerly want to learn. That's a community worth being a part of. So let me take a moment, and I'm going to show you guys a little bit about IPAC EDU, and then we're going to talk about a specific course that is being offered that I'm a part of. So this is just the homepage for IPAC EDU. You can literally find it at ipac-edu.org. Again, IPAC is an acronym, IPAK. It stands for the Institute for Pure and Applied Knowledge. EDU, of course, just means education. So this is the homepage. All right, there you go. Empower yourself through knowledge. That's what IPAC EDU is all about. And we got a couple of categories of courses here. I'm just showing you just very, very briefly, just kind of what IPAC EDU is all about, because I'm going to speak specifically to a course that we have just started that I think you might be interested in. But even if you're not, there may be other courses at IPAC EDU that perhaps you would be more interested in. So if I go to this tab right here, browse courses, you can see there's a pretty diverse catalog of courses here. So you got, this is just different categories of courses, but you got the biology curriculum track. You've got here psychology, analytics. So these aren't specific courses, they are types of courses. Mind science, even law and other related courses. So there's quite a few. If I were to, the vaccine course. So if I were to just click on one of these categories, you'll see here that there are quite a few courses that are part of this overall category. So one of these courses, for example, autoimmunity and human health. Here's another one, the biology of cancer. So there are quite a few courses that are offered here at IPAC EDU. Let me click on this category. So here's a course called Vaccine Injury Compensation Programs in the US. Here's another one called History of Law in the West and the US. So, like I said, a wide range of courses from qualified instructors and made up of students just like you, just like me, who want to learn because they appreciate truth and they appreciate being with other people who also want to learn. Now, these courses, yes, there's a cost associated because there's a lot of hours on the part of the instructors that go into the preparation for these courses. But here's what you get out of the course. So you can attend, via Zoom, and the course will be attended by the other students just like you who have joined the course. And so you'll attend these lectures, these presentations, or whatever. They're pretty interactive. You'll be able to ask questions of the instructor or instructors. You'll be able to dialogue with the other students in the course. And you'll notice that a lot of the students in the course a lot of times are also very qualified and credentialed in their own right. But that's not something that should intimidate you. It should just let you know that there are many individuals who value what is taught in these courses. No, there are no tests, there are no exams, but what you will receive are very thorough, professionally laid out courses. A lot of times they involve a presentation of the slides. You'll have access to those slides later, even after the course ends. You'll have access in perpetuity so that you can refer back to that. Sometimes there may be associated readings, there may be other little projects or whatever that you can participate in so that you can learn the most out of these courses. But no, there's nothing to be intimidated about. People from all walks of life, differing education levels participate in these courses because they're genuinely interested. And it may not necessarily be that they have some sort of advanced knowledge within the field that they're taking the course for. It may be that they have a desire to know, curiosity, and are willing to perhaps do some reading or engage in these dialogues in order to learn. So the course that I want to talk to you about today is this course here. It's called Power and Social Change. So I'm just going to click on this tab and I'm going to bring it up and let's talk a little bit about it. Okay, so what is this course? What does it say right here? IPAC EDU mega course. Power and Social Change. Exponential Forces in Civilization, Science, and Governance. So the course actually started last week. But if you're interested in signing up, that should not deter you because you can, even if you sign up right now, which maybe you should, if this interests you, you can get access to that lesson that you will have already missed. So no big deal. And then of course you'll get, even after the course is over, you'll get access to all the course lectures, etc. So the course is offered on Thursdays at 11 a.m. Eastern. There are 3 instructors. The first is Dr. James Lyons Weiler. So he is, like I said, he's a research scientist. He's a biologist. He came out of the world of academia. I would say he very much continues in the world of academia today. He just does it in a slightly different way, through the means of these online courses in which he can reach more people, and has developed a robust community of curious, engaged adult learners. He's conducted a lot of research throughout his professional life, and that very much informs the way in which he teaches his courses now. So that's Dr. James Lyons Weiler. Many people know him as Dr. Jack. The other instructor right here, so VN Alexander, so that's Dr. Victoria Alexander, or Tori, who has a very interesting background. She refers to herself as a novelist, and she has written several novels, but she also refers to herself as a philosopher of science. And she would tell you that she's very interested in the overlap between art and science. Just a fascinating individual. And then there's me, who the least accomplished of the 3 instructors But that's me, Brad Miller. So I come from a background in the military. I spent many years as a military officer. I left the Army about 2.5 years ago. And nowadays I am very interested in my own education, the education of others. I'm very interested in forging communities of individuals who care about freedom and care about knowledge and care about truth and care about coming together as members of our communities and working together to keep ourselves free. So let's look a little bit more specifically about the course. All right, I'm not going to read all this course description, but I will put a link in the description of the video so that you can go back and you can check this out in its entirety if you're interested. And I would encourage you to do that. But I'm going to read this first part here. It says, the rules are changing fast. Do you know how to recognize how they're changing? Are you able to navigate power structures in your own life? Are you able to predict transformational political or economic instability that affects your work, family, investments, and your future? You are not just a passive observer of power. You are subject to it, shaped by it. And if you understand it, you can influence it. All right, I'm going to read a little bit more. By the end of this course, you will not just understand power shifts, you will recognize them as they happen, understand their dynamics analytically, and anticipate their impact before they become history. I'm going to skip a little bit here. You will walk away with more than understanding. You will be empowered to approach the world with application and foresight. Now, those are some lofty claims. I admit that, but that is the objective of this course. It's not just that you walk away and you just you have some superficial conceptual understanding of power and its relationship to social change. No, our objective is that you come away with a much more enriched understanding of the way that power affects us. So one of the things that I'll say about Dr. Jack and why this is important is because a lot of times when we think about social issues or sociology in general, if we're sometimes those when we think about those issues, they can be a little bit abstract. And if we're not careful, that's where they can remain in this abstract world where we speak about things that a lot of times are very subjective, very ideas. A lot of times we're discussing people's opinions, etc. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's all great. But what we want to do here is approach things a little bit more concretely. There's nothing wrong with discussing ideas, of course, sharing opinions, etc. But what we can do here is perhaps we can talk about things a little bit more quantitatively. And this is where Dr. Jack's expertise comes in, because we can look at, well, how do mathematical models or how might statistical analysis help us better understand our world? When we look at models and the way models might enhance our ability to look at our hypotheses, test those hypotheses, and draw some conclusions. If you're not familiar with exactly how that works, this might be a course that would help you. Sometimes, if you maybe you consider yourself to be somebody who doesn't necessarily understand math very well, or quantitative analysis has been something that you have found difficult in the past, or maybe you're not even exactly sure what that means. That doesn't necessarily mean that this course isn't for you. What it may mean is perhaps you're more familiar with other types of research, more qualitative types of research, things that may be a little bit more subjective, or things that may be a little bit more exploratory in terms of identifying some phenomena and then trying to understand those phenomena descriptively, maybe writing out some sort of description. There's nothing wrong with that. But what I think will help us here is if we can also learn to approach things using data. So through numerical analyses. And that may be where this course helps us have a more nuanced and a more well-rounded approach to these types of issues. So what that means is, let's look at the factors that impact the world that we live, work, and operate in. Let's think about the systems that comprise our society. Well, if we're thinking about those systems, we need to think about the parts of those systems, the relationships between the various parts of those systems, the feedback loops inherent to those systems. And then also, we need to understand the vulnerabilities of those systems. And then once we understand the vulnerabilities, are there ways in which we can harden those vulnerabilities or shore up certain gaps so that they don't fail? Or are there ways in which we can also identify certain strengths in some of those systems that we might be able to take advantage of? And then there's also the idea of complexity. This idea that there are certain systems that have such a large number of parts, or the relationships between those parts are so intricate that by their very nature, they're inherently difficult to understand. So are there ways in which we can enhance our ability to understand those and then navigate some of these systems? Now, there are many theories out there as to what power means when it comes to our society, our country, other countries, geopolitical dynamics, etc. And obviously in the course, we're going to have different people who have different worldviews when it comes to that, which of course is great. And we can discuss some of these things, because when we talk about factors that influence these dynamics of power, some of those factors are more overt. Others perhaps are less easy to see, or it's more difficult to measure the influence that they have on our society or the institutions of our society, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they are unimportant. And so hopefully through this course, we can discuss ways in which we can perhaps better measure or better understand the factors that influence these power structures. I'm returning here to the course description. There's a little bit more that I want to read. Okay. How can we know when we are in the middle of a major societal shift? Are we watching the world evolve, destabilize, or transition into something entirely new? History tells us that societies often fail to recognize their own transformation until long after they have crossed a tipping point, whether through economic collapse, the centralization or fragmentation of power, or technological revolutions. I'm going to skip a little bit. We will focus on building your analytic ability to consider quantitative models of power shifts. I just spoke a little bit about that. Using historical case studies, mathematical models of power accumulation, and analyses of modern geopolitical shifts, we will explore how civilizations rise and fall, how power consolidates and redistributes, and how infrastructure investment determines success or collapse. We will examine the balance between centralized governance and decentralized resilience, the role of hidden or latent variables, and how social unease and unrest and delayed institutional responses impact transformation. Readings from selected resources will provide a deep foundation alongside contemporary works on AI governance, economic power shifts, and systemic risk. I'm going to skip a little bit here. I'm going to finish this up. Are we at the precipice of a new power structure? Is AI accelerating the next great societal phase transition? Have we already crossed the threshold without realizing it? By the end of this course, students will be equipped with the analytical tools to recognize, anticipate, and even influence the trajectory of power in a rapidly changing world. And then I'm going to just show you a snapshot here of what the different lessons each week will look like. So we just had lesson 1, which was last Thursday. If this interests you and you want to sign up, I would encourage you to go ahead and sign up. You'll get access to that lesson. You'll get all the lessons, they're done via Zoom and they're recorded. So you can get access to the recording. So that's not a big deal. So lesson 1, the title of that was The Foundations of Power, Exponential Factors in History. Lesson 2 is called Power Collapse and Unrecognized Transformations. Lesson 3, Investment in Infrastructure, Then and Now. Week 4, How Societies Balance Centralization and Resilience. Week 5, Disruptions, Power Laws, and hidden forces. Week 6, speculative futures, what comes next. So, like I said, I just wanted to take a couple of minutes. I wanted to tell you guys about this course because these are topics that I find very interesting. This is something that I think it's important. It's important that we understand the world that we all live, work in, etc. And we all know that things are changing right now, and we could probably quibble back and forth as to whether or not they're changing for the better or not. But it's important that we do recognize they are changing. Now, what does that mean? When we encounter change, are we able to harness that change in ways that enhance our lives, or do we fail to adapt to those changes and then suffer as a society because of it? So these are some of the things that we want to discuss, but also we want to equip all the students. And I mean, I may be one of the co-instructors for this course, but I still very much also consider myself a student. I've been an instructor for other courses here at IPAC EDU, and even when I was the instructor for those courses, I still very much considered myself a student as well, because there are many other people in the course that that I certainly can learn from. And I'm very interested in many of the ideas that some of you may have, your outlook on the world. And I'm hoping that together we can go through these lessons and we can all come away with a more well-rounded ability to think critically. And a lot of times, thinking critically means thinking analytically or having an analytical framework that allows us a perspective to view things concretely, to look at data and then draw conclusions from that data. And that's something that I feel like I can certainly improve upon. Maybe you feel that way too. But I'm also very interested in understanding power. And I'll tell you why. And this is just, my personal thoughts on this, but there's clearly a relationship between power and freedom. And of course, we could discuss what that relationship is, but it's necessary that we know that there is that relationship so we can understand how to harness power. Power in and of itself is not bad. Of course, it's not bad, but it can be used against us. So how can we understand the dynamics of power, the structures of power, and by understanding that, we can exploit it, we can take advantage, we can harness it, we can use it, as opposed to being subjected to it in ways that harm us or that limit our freedoms or don't permit us to optimize our lives and the lives of our family members, community members, and the citizens of our countries. So thanks for sticking with me for a couple of minutes just so I could share a little bit with you about IPAC EDU and about this course. So again, the course is called Power and Social Change. I hope that you'll consider coming along and discussing these important issues with us. We'd certainly love to hear what your ideas are and to learn from you as well. And the link to the course description where you can learn more about the course, but you can also sign up. I will put that in the description to the video. And thank you, and hope to see you in the course.